everybody, welcome to Minecraft. Now I know you are looking at this and you see an absolute train wreck of a mess, and I see something absolutely beautiful. I'll show you where this started off, and this started off with a very clean build. This is a build that I showcased and I said I would be working on. And for those of you who didn't see that episode, this is a purchasing system. I'll put it that way. This is a vending machine. Very compact, actually, all things considered. The only thing that isn't compact is this timing circuit, which totally needs to be more compact. I should have just put it on an item timer, but you know how that goes. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. But this one literally works perfectly fine. You put in an item in here that you're ordering, you put in a diamond, and it will send your order through, and it will, of course, dispense however many of the said item it would be. For example, this one I believe does half a stack with this many comparators. Oh, it makes me so sad that I have to use so many comparators. But that is literally the functionality of it. It works. It does. And I decided that I wanted to make one that was virtually indestructible by the end user, and that was kind of my challenge. Now you guys can tell me on whether or not I did the challenge well or completed the challenge in a at least satisfactory way. I have not yet condensed things, which I realize is going to be my biggest criticism, and I'm going to criticize myself for it. I did not actually sit through everything and ensure that it was as compact as could be. But that being said, I hope you guys really enjoy my changes to things. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to talk about my thought process going through how I came up with this build. So this, again, was my own thought process, but it essentially just used RS NOR latches and then reset RS NOR latches once enough items came through. Not counting the items, but just assimilating the time. So it takes this long for half the items to drop. So there was a lot of finicky time stuff, and it wasn't very stable. In a single player world, it would work perfectly fine 100% of the time. But in reality, when you're putting it on a server, it's less reliable. So what I decided to do was I started with a basic item sorter because I wanted to make sure that the payment was only diamonds. So that's all this is just an item sorter. So I just threw this on and we just called it a day in terms of making sure that all we got through this were diamonds. So the other option was, or I shouldn't say the other option, the next part was to come down here and to create a circuit that would take orders from a dropper. So it takes orders from a dropper, and it takes orders from and it takes payment, and then it assimilates the two. So what we have here is an AND gate. So the AND gate only goes off, and I should get rid of this blue because this blue is unnecessary right now. So what ends up happening is, oh goodness, this timer's gonna be going off, and I'm not gonna like it. I'm just gonna put that there real quick. Okay, so I'll go over what this blue stuff is in just a little bit and why it's unnecessary. So what will happen is we put one item in the dropper, or however many items. The way I built this system, I wanted to put in an unlimited number of items. So it has unlimited number of dispensing capabilities and has an unlimited number of potential options, of potential buying of items. So what I ended up doing was we turned this into an AND gate. So this essentially checks this dropper, and if they both have items in it, which this one should because it's an order and this one should because it's payment, it sets off this clock. Now this clock is used to it's used to set off the droppers up until the point where there's nothing left in one of them, at least. Now, normally you'd want them both to be dispensed equally, because obviously they're going to pay for everything. Well, if they don't pay for anything, or if they pay too much, I want it to stop. So what I did was I ended up with this circuit over here, basically just extending the ends of the latch so that it removes the block, or it removes the blocks from underneath, so these droppers don't get powered unless there are items in both droppers. I can't believe I just fell there. So essentially, if I put in 2 TNT here and I put only 1 diamond in here, this entire thing, the clock will go off, it will dispense once, and when the second one goes through, this one will still be in here because it got the block pulled away, and this one obviously won't be able to put out another thing because there's not another thing to put out. So that is the complete payment system. This is a complete payment system. There is nothing more to add to this. It is all inclusive and it is done. Now comes some interesting parts. So I kind of want to go into the logic, and I believe arguing for logic right now is very, very important and should definitely be something that you look at when you're going through things. And my initial logic going through this was I should just make a universal clock. And a universal clock solves a lot of problems. So we wanted a clock that would only be on at certain points in time. Now, the whole reason why we wanted that was to make sure that the person over here isn't actually messing with the timer. Or the timer isn't running when it's not supposed to be. So if no one's using the system, why would you have a timer? That's kind of the idea behind it. But you'll see why we phased this out. Essentially, when there is an order in here, the timer is stopped anyway, so that it ensures that this block is up, and this is just something to ensure that there's a pulse going through, so that when items come out the other side, this just makes sure that it first of all clears an RS NOR latch, which is something that we desperately needed to ensure constant output, and it ensures that when this comes down, it comes down after this, so that if there's still items in here, it'll go through the system, which is perfectly fine. So this actually worked pretty darn good. It worked pretty well. There was a timing circuit that I needed to add, and can be changed via. So there's 2 main problems with this, and it comes from both segments of this, yeah, it comes from pretty much just 2 segments with this. So the first one is, of course, the universal clock, and frankly, that one we'll get to in a second. This one being, this is actually susceptible to lag. For example, if there's a lag spike when it is trying to cut itself off, sometimes it won't cut itself off in time, or sometimes it'll cut itself off too soon before items can move out of it, and that makes it slightly inconsistent. You'd only be off by like 1 item here and there, which is not a horrible thing. The bad thing with this is, in order to keep this thing going as it's supposed to be, when you had items in here, it had to completely stop the clock. Now, that only works for, and this only works for a system that's so long. For example, if you kept it going infinity with this system right here, not including the clock, because you wouldn't need to include the clock, but if you went infinitely with this, at some point the pulse would go beyond the items that are coming down the hopper chain, And that would be a problem, especially if there's too many orders and the orders end up going all the way down there. All of a sudden the redstone is faster than the line, and if they arrive here while this is already down, then they're getting shortchanged and not getting a full stack. And I think that's the main reason why I had to change out this system in particular. So I ended up just saying, okay, so if we get rid of the universal clock, what can we do? And that's when I came up with this solution. Now, this isn't the most elegant solution, and I haven't condensed it at all yet, but this is an actual functional system. So if I come over here, I'm going to look in here, and there's 2 stacks of diamonds. I'm going to put those 2 stacks of diamonds back, right? And if I come over here, this is diamonds for diamonds. And I'll kind of explain as this is going through. So I'm going to put 2 items in my item hopper, and that's going to be 2 stacks worth of diamonds. So I'm going to pay for 2 stacks worth of diamonds. And so what happens is oh, it has a pulse. The pulse is long enough in the item sorter, because obviously we're going to be in a chain of hoppers. So it's going to come down, already been paid for because that was taken care of with the orange circuit. And it goes through this monostable circuit to give it a single tick pulse. Now that single tick pulse ends up hitting this RS NOR latch, which gives out a constant output up until this clock makes 1 full revolution. Now I say revolution, really it's just 1 back and forth movement, but 1 full cycle, I should say, because that's all a clock is. And there is a full stack of items going back and forth in here. Now, as you can see, what ended up happening is this torch got turned off again because there was another item waiting in there. But the only reason why that worked is because this came back and reset this RS NOR latch. So, so the feedback loop resets the RS NOR latch and then is delayed just a little bit, delayed and inverted, and then comes back through here and lets exactly 1 item pass out the bottom of here and resets this monostable circuit, essentially. I mean, it technically resets everything along this line, but the huge part is it resets the monostable circuit, and the whole reason why that's important is because then it can check for another item. Essentially, it starts itself off and then sets itself back down. So obviously, when it came through here, there weren't enough items left in, which means we've gone through 2 full cycles of the system, meaning we have 2 stacks of diamonds coming out the end. So that is a working independent system. Now, the whole thing about this is that the only thing that this entire circuit needs is a single item to enter a hopper. So once you get through the payment system, it's automatic. It doesn't need anything else. You could go like 3 or 1, or it doesn't matter, because all of a sudden, so even if they threw more items down later on, this clock is still going to be going. It's still going to be chugging away, and it's still going to be letting items out. The only thing that can mess with it is if you open the chest, because the chest won't let items out as long as you're looking inside. Otherwise, what's happening is it's going to continue this cycle of setting off the hopper timer coming through, resetting everything, and then checking for another item, and then setting off the clock again. That is all this system is, but it ends up working out perfectly every single time. And part of the problem was, first of all, by putting in items, it would actually control this clock, and you could actually break the system and get way more items out of it if this clock was broken. So that was kind of my original problem with this design, but it turns out so much more than that, because now that we have this thing set up as we do, this clock is in direct line of contact with our output. So our output is infinitely specific. So if it's lag, then the lag is going to affect this hopper and this hopper the same. If someone disconnects, it's going to stop this hopper the same it's going to stop this hopper. All of these things are the same, and as long as everything's the same, it is an infallible system. The only thing that can break this system is a creeper coming in and somebody blowing it up in their own face. That is how robust this system is. Now, admittedly, it is not the fastest system. There is a problem with the system in terms of speed because it requires this clock to go off twice, but that is just to ensure that it is completely safe for servers. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown of my decision making in building this, which I think is much more beneficial to everybody, knowing how I came to these conclusions and how I organized myself. Don't get me wrong, I totally understand that I need to go through this and shorten it. There's quite a few blocks in here that I can get rid of. Like, there's an entire segment here that I can easily push these way closer together and get a way tighter output, and I could just have a way tighter system. But I really wanted to go through it as it was, because this really shows how you can derive a process from look, 3 stacks of diamonds after I put those through. How you can derive a process from knowing the input and knowing the output. For example, knowing that this circuit, like knowing first of all to organize your items, and then second of all, knowing what your input needs to be, and knowing that what my output is going to be a random assortment of items, knowing that my output is going to be diamonds, and how to make it as even as possible. And that is its own challenge, and it's a whole bunch of stuff. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I realize that you guys can probably look at this and recreate it yourself, or make it even better, more condensed, and I actually want people to use this and come up with their own uses for it. And that's I think a huge part of the community is making sure that this stuff is available to everybody. And I'm super glad you guys decided to stop by my video and check out the absolute insanity that I've been working on. And this might be coming to a server near you guys, so that's going to be super sweet. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. For any of you that have any constructive input, I would gladly appreciate it. Destructive input? You know what? Go for it. Roast me. Bring it. All I do is I do these things because I care about you guys, and I want everybody to enjoy themselves and think critically, because the more you critically think, the better off the world is. And I dare someone to challenge me on that, because there's a lot of people that want to argue against it, but I truly believe that this is it's more important now than ever to fully understand how you come to conclusions and how to reason, and to not jump to conclusions without reasonable evidence, and without experimenting and trying things out. And yeah, don't parrot what you see on YouTube. Don't do it. It's a trap. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, take it easy.